Hi, and welcome back to Football Made Simple. In 2012-13, club legend Jupp Heynckes led Bayern Munich to a historic treble, as Bayern Munich won the Bundesliga, the DFB Pokal, as well as the Champions League, breaking a slew of records along the way. They conquered Europe in swashbuckling style, but what tactics did Heynckes use that allowed such a brilliant season? In this video, we take a look. Heynckes had a clear plan of attack, using the 4-2-3-1 in every single league and Champions League match. Their personnel looked like this, and both Robben and Kroos struggled with injuries throughout the season, and Thomas Müller would come in to replace either ably due to his versatility. Let's look at the build-up play. Bayern were one of the best sides in Europe on the ball, and in the Bundesliga they dominated possession with an average of 62% possession. But in the Champions League, they were more willing to cede possession when necessary and still be successful, with a much lower possession of 53%. From the back, Neuer was one of the ball-playing keepers around, always being the third man in the build-up phase if the centre-backs were being pressed, allowing them to play on more easily due to the numerical superiority. And often, many teams didn't bother with the high press, as they knew once Bayern played around them, they would now have men short further back. Both of the centre-backs in Dante and Boateng were comfortable on the ball. On rarer occasions, when under pressure, they could ping a ball long, as they had a target man up front in Mario Mandzukic, who could look to hold up the play. And in fact, they both had over 7 accurate long balls per game. However, they were more likely to go short. In the first phase, both Alaba and Lahm made themselves available for short passes. And once received, they were superb on the ball, getting the ball into the pivots or the attacking midfielder, or even threading the ball down the line to their winger. Where possible though, Bayern looked to penetrate through the centre of the pitch. Both of the pivots in Schweinsteiger and Javi Martinez were great on the ball, helping Bayern keep possession in tight areas. However, if the centre-backs were being pressed, then it tended to be Javi Martinez who would drop between the centre-backs to help progress the ball. But this would leave Schweinsteiger isolated, and Toni Kroos, who was a 10 at the time, was already showing he was comfortable dropping into these deeper regions to help build up the play with his passing range. In fact, when Martinez hadn't dropped deep, Kroos could still operate here to help them keep the ball as they loved to do. But when Müller played instead of Kroos, he tended to stay higher up the pitch. However, Martinez tended to give the ball up to Schweinsteiger, who was the key midfielder. He was the hub of the team and averaged the most passes per game for the team. However, Bayern's major threats were in the wide regions, and the wingers in this phase hugged the touchline. This Bayern side were notorious for using the centre of the pitch as a route to attack the wide regions, and Schweinsteiger was the chief facilitator, attempting over 11 long balls per game and completing 9 to try and get their winger one-on-one to cause damage. And when the ball went up to Toni Kroos instead, Schweinsteiger pushed higher up to create a central overload in these high regions. If unmarked, Kroos wasn't shy about having a strike from range. But more commonly, the presence of the two midfielders here drew the opponents central, which then opened up more room on the flanks. Kroos was excellent at constantly switching the play to the wingers to perpetually shift the defenders from side to side and get their key men one-on-one with the fullback. Once the ball was wide, the wingers came alive. Both were inverted, meaning that they looked to dribble at their opponent, and Robben was more likely to attempt his signature cold shot from these regions, with 2 dribbles per game and 2.9 shots per 90, of which more than half were from outside the box. But Ribery was more creative in his role. When he cut in, he could also have shots from here, but could just as easily look to thread the ball through to the forward for the finish. He was also more comfortable cutting back onto his weak foot to attack the byline and attempt the cross, where Mandzukic, who was great in the air, could look to finish, and he scored 6 headed goals. But the wingers were greatly assisted by the fullbacks, who were always keen to overlap. So if the opposition fullback cut off the route for the inverted winger to move infield, they could instead slip the ball to the fullback overlapping to get the cross in. So Lahm got 11 assists, whilst Alaba got 3. But the use of Müller shouldn't be understated, as he definitely changed the dynamics. When he played as a central attacking midfielder, it is important to note that Mandzukic was a mobile forward and often pulled out to the left, which created space here, and from Cam, Müller could easily step into the centre forward role and look to finish. But his most common role was out on the right wing when Robben was injured, and of course, as the Raumdeuter, this was only nominal. He rarely took on his fullback, instead most commonly laying it off to Lahm, who was supported by Kroos whilst Müller made his way into the box. He and Mandzukic then made the perfect aerial targets, whilst Schweinsteiger was the box-to-box midfielder and also often moved into these areas to help flood the box. As a result, these three scored the most headed goals for the side. So what if they lost the ball? How did they transition to defense? Heynckes in this season employed a lot of counter-pressing, and the key was that he got the whole team to defend when necessary, even Robben and Ribéry, who had been hesitant to do so in prior seasons. But the press all started from Mandzukic, who could run all game and would harry the centre-backs until they were either forced long or wide. Once they did go wide, he cut off the route back infield, whilst the winger would push right up onto the fullback. The defensive line also tended to push their line higher, and the fullbacks in particular followed their men deep, well into their own half. The team would then shift across the pitch to make it as small as possible, meaning that Bayern generally followed the principle of making the pitch big when attacking and small when defending, making them very effective. And once they won the ball, they were very quick to transition into the attack, as they had so many players who could instantly spring a long ball to take advantage of the pace of the wingers. But if Bayern had to defend for a more prolonged period, they were happy to drop into a 4-5-1, with the key again being that the wingers were also willing to drop deep to assist the defenders. For the most part, even when in a defensive stance, they tried to maintain a much higher line, to compress the play and reduce the distance to goal when there was a turnover. This was made possible through having a sweeper keeper in Neuer, who when any ball was played into these regions was capable of dominating and clearing the ball. But in Europe, they could adapt these tactics to switch to a more counter-attacking style when deemed necessary. In the Champions League ladder stages, they were willing to drop even deeper to draw the opposition onto them. Once there was a turnover, their pacey wingers in Robben and Ribéry took advantage of the spaces behind the fullbacks and were almost impossible to catch. That, combined with the passing range of the whole backline, and Schweinsteiger, Kroos and Martinez, meant that the game-breaking pass could come from anywhere, and once released, the wingers and the forward were lethal. Their 12 shots from counter-attacking situations was the highest in the Champions League that season. This side of the team was most famously shown over 2 legs against Barcelona, where they went on to win 7-0 on aggregate. This was the blueprint that allowed the Bavarians to enjoy a historic season. And it also led to them breaking a host of records along the way. Just a few include most points in a Bundesliga season, least games needed to win the league, the most wins in a season, as well as the best goal difference in the league. It was, at the time, a fitting send-off for Jupp Heynckes, who, as a club legend, signed off by winning everything that there was to win, having previously been criticized for not winning in Europe. Although, as we now know, he was tempted out of retirement one last time to pick up some silverware. But, as always, not every single tactic used could be covered in just one video. So I'd love it if you commented down below any other trends and tactics that you noticed down in the comments. Would you also be interested in an in-game analysis of the famous semi-final encounters against Barcelona in the Champions League? If so, drop that down in the comments below, as well as any other teams and video suggestions that you'd like to see covered. A special shout out to everyone who's been able to support Football Made Simple on Patreon so far. If you want to help the channel, I'd love it if you considered supporting on patreon.com/footballmadesimple, and you'll get perks like early access to videos, exclusive content, and so much more. But that's all for today, and remember, keep it simple.